Hey everybody, IcyCat here, and today we're going to be talking about movement exploits. We're watching footage provided by Mr. Sharpshooter PT. You can check out his channel by clicking on the link on your screen or down below in the comments. Big thanks to him for sharing his gameplay with us. So, what are movement exploits? Well, these are the kinds of movement mechanics that fall outside of the normal range of basic movement techniques. The two most popular examples of this are drop shotting and strafe dancing. Let's start with drop shotting. This is where a player will be sprinting along. They'll hold down the change stance button in order to go from a sprint to lying prone in one very fast motion. And this usually results in the target firing over the now prone player's hitbox, since it's suddenly taking up a lot less space than it was just a second ago. Meanwhile, the prone player can fire upon the intended target. The player then gets up and runs around again, often doing this repeatedly, knowing that dropping to the ground will result in a high miss ratio for incoming fire and a high hit ratio for them. It almost becomes something of a win feature because it's fairly hard to counter unless you go around firing low on targets in the first place. In most shooters, the transition from full forward movement speed to prone position is so sudden that there's little to no transition time. This tends to be really frustrating to be on the receiving end of for most players. People who are fans of drop shotting argue that if it's in the game, then it's a valid technique. They argue that it takes skill to pull off. I'd say this is true on both counts. You do certainly have to have some skill to quickly do the combination of moving forward, sprinting, holding down the change stance button, and then firing. There's certainly some complex finger kung fu going on there. As for the argument of the developers leaving the mechanic in place, thus making it valid, I'd like to petition the developers to just disable this movement exploit entirely. By introducing a time delay for changing stance of 1.5 to 2 seconds and making it so you have to cycle from standing to crouching before you can go prone, you're going to get rid of most instances of this. Also, your accuracy should really suffer for a couple of seconds while shifting stances. Here, this is some footage I took using a GoPro strapped to the back of an M4. You can see when I drop shot in real life, my aim bounces all over the place, even though I'm trying to keep a fixed position with the laser sight on the wall. It takes a couple of seconds for the accuracy to settle. That's realistic. Now let's talk about strafe dancing. This is where a player strafes left to right, left to right, left to right, while hosing down their target. It makes them really hard to hit, but it doesn't seem to affect their accuracy all that much. Once again, a movement exploit is being used to exchange a low hit probability against them for a high hit probability on a target using unrealistic movement mechanics. Here's more footage of me strafe dancing in real life. As you can see, while my laser sight does stay in the general area, it's bouncing all over the place despite my best attempts to keep it in the same spot. Many of my shots will go to the left or the right or up. I mean, yeah, some shots will score hits, but only a few. I'm relatively close to the wall here too, only about a dozen feet. The further out I go, the more pronounced that effect is going to become. So why do people think these are problems in a game? Well, firstly, it's unrealistic. The instant counter to that is you're playing a video game. Of course it's not going to be realistic. Obviously, a game isn't going to simulate reality perfectly. That said, we shouldn't excuse departures from reality either. You have certain expectations of what's realistic even from games. You don't expect a shotgun to headshot someone from one end of the map to the other because you have an expectation of reality that shotguns don't function that way. I mean, that's what a sniper rifle is for. Same here. Soldiers and law enforcement officers don't dive to the floor every other time they see a suspect or combatant. You'll never see a police officer strafing from left to right, left to right, left to right while he's engaging a criminal in a firefight. These are things that would just get you killed if you tried them in real life. Secondly, they break immersion. Mostly because of the realism factor, but also because it just looks silly. Thirdly, they widen the reflex skill gap in a game that is known for its tactical gameplay. Not every player can do the necessary finger kung fu to pull off some of these types of movement. Those that can't are going to be at a disadvantage. And one could argue that this makes sense in an arcade arena-style shooter like Halo or Call of Duty, where these games are about twitch reflexes and fast reaction times, amassing the most kills in a respawn-enabled environment, and rushing back to the spot you just died 2 seconds ago. A game like Rainbow Six, however, has a certain pedigree about it that is quite different. Rainbow Six is about taking your time, moving slowly, using tactics, and overwhelming the opposing force with superior strategy and coordination. You also don't get second chances since there are no respawns. By introducing mainstream movement exploits that have become popular in these other titles known for these kinds of arcade, arena-style gameplay, frankly, we dilute what it is that makes Rainbow Six different from those other games in the first place. The fixes to this are easy. Implement a delay between stance changes of 1.5 to 2 seconds. Make it so you can't go to prone without first going to crouch. When you change stances, make it so your accuracy has to resettle after a second or two, just like it did in previous Rainbow Six titles such as Raven Shield. While you're moving, your accuracy should suffer, even while ADSing. The faster you move, the heavier the penalty should be. Sprinting should just send your shots all over the place. Strafing speed in general should be reduced to half movement speed. And if you attempt to fire while strafing, you should have some pretty serious accuracy penalties here as well. None of this is really revolutionary. These were concepts that were present in other Rainbow Six titles. In Siege, we've seen examples of both strafe dancing as well as drop shotting during the alpha gameplay, and it's this step into the modern movement mechanics that's potentially concerning. So, what do you guys think? Should Siege continue to use these movement mechanics that are now considered mainstream and commonplace? Or should Siege put in limitations and restrictions on some of these more arcade and arena movement mechanics? What do you think are the pros and cons on gameplay using these kinds of movement? Let us know down below, or head on over to the forums or subreddit to discuss in more detail. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.